21st century adult Christians have two problems with this story in the 6th to 9th chapters of Genesis, which we call the story of Noah's Ark. The first is our tendency to make it so cute it's robbed of its power. It's dramatic. It has animals to attract children, plenty of moo-moos and oink-oinks. We tend to think of it in nursery bright colors, in blocks or puzzles, or stuffed animals with a big boat that they all fit in. We remember singing songs about Noah and the floody and his arky. Maybe some of you do. We see the pictures in our mind's eye of the illustrations in children's Bibles. There's something accessible and orderly, even to children, in all the animals going into the ark 2 by 2. And maybe there's something that makes children feel safe. After all, when the storm is raging around Noah and the waters are climbing, he's safe with his little family and the animals God said he could take with him. It's really a perfect children's Bible story. Some people try to counteract our tendency to make it cute by trying to find the actual Noah's Ark. A few biblical scholars have spent many so far fruitless years trying to prove that there was a worldwide flood and that there are remnants of the ark out there somewhere that survived the elements and disintegration over time, just waiting to be found, probably on a mountaintop somewhere in Turkey. The idea holds a fascination, probably second only to the Shroud of Turin or the Ark of the Covenant. But geologists haven't been able to prove conclusively that there was a worldwide historical flood that wiped out Earth's creatures and plants within a short period of time. And biblical archaeologists, despite years of searching, have not found anything remotely resembling an ark. The story of Noah's Ark certainly gives a folktale explanation of the origins of the rainbow, which we all know is caused by sunlight hitting rain in such a way that the full spectrum of light is revealed. She's arguing with me. And we might also realize that a rainbow only shows up when a storm is either not intense or is passing. Intense storms that are sticking around for a while are more likely to bring pouring rain, tornadoes, or hurricanes, and no rainbows. So logically, when we see a rainbow, we would know that the intensity of the storm is passing, and we'd say to ourselves, no catastrophic flood is going to happen today. The second problem we as adults have with this story is that this is one of those stories that causes us to wonder, if this is true in even a spiritual sense, what does it tell us about a God who would wipe out nearly all life in order to start over again with a better crop of people and a few animals? The introduction to the story of Noah says that the Lord saw that the wickedness of humankind was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made humankind on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out from the earth the human beings I have created, people together with animals and creeping things and birds of the air, for I am sorry I made them. So in using the flood, it's like God decided to undo creation, took aim at the earth and destroyed most of it. But here is something I find moving about this story. God is grieved to the heart, but still saves a few humans and animal species. God knows people will continue to sin, even Noah and his descendants. But the Lord doesn't start over again from scratch. Instead, taking the opportunity to hang it up, to figuratively walk away from anger. One of my colleagues describes it this way. The sign of this covenant, God's bow in the clouds, is precisely the bow of battle. Ancient depictions of a deity armed with bow and arrow are not unusual. To hang up one's bow is to retire from battle. That bow in the clouds is the sign of God's promise that whatever else God does to seek our restoration, destruction is off the table. It's as if in this covenant, God is saying, I won't do anything this drastic again. I saved you from the waters of chaos. A remnant of humanity was adrift upon the inhospitable waters for 40 days with the wild animals. And then, but wait a minute. This sounds something like our gospel lesson, which starts with Jesus' baptism and continues with him being driven by the Spirit. You know, the one that just came down to him like a dove, now drives him out into the desert, into the wilderness for 40 days, where he is tempted and lives with the wild beasts. There's even a parallel between the heavens tearing apart at Jesus' baptism and the language that is used for the flood. The windows of the heavens were opened. And then what happens? New life, new ministry, a new sense of purpose, a baptism, a new covenant. The Episcopal version of the thanksgiving over the water at baptism doesn't mention Noah, but the ELCA version does. It says, through the waters of the flood you delivered Noah and his family, and through the sea you led your people Israel from slavery into freedom. At the river your son was baptized by John and anointed with the Spirit. So it's all about water, plenty of it, and a new sense of purpose that comes after it. The covenant God makes after the 40-day flood, and Jesus' ministry that follows on the heels of his baptism and 40 days of preparation in the wilderness. Noah and the flood prefigure Jesus' baptism. But there's one other aspect that these texts share in common, as I just suggested. When Jesus is in the wilderness going through temptation, he's with the wild beasts. The wilderness is a place where no humans live, but there are animals there. And although it doesn't exactly say, I prefer to think that these are not menacing beasts on the side of the evil one who tempts Jesus, but animals of the natural order who call the wilderness their home. And there are many animals in the Noah story, but the most exciting thing for me is the part of the story that is our text for today. This covenant that God establishes, where the weapon that is the bow is hung up in the clouds. It's a covenant between God and every living creature. These words are repeated several times. Now, I'll give you all a moment to scan our Genesis lesson. Pull it out and look at it again. Can anyone tell me how many times that exact phrase is used? Every living creature. This is one of those tests, like the one where you have to read the sentence and pick out how many F's there are. Andy says 3. Anybody have a different number? Okay. Well, if you said 4, you're right. I guess the author of this story wanted to make sure that we didn't miss it. 4 can also represent the number of cardinal directions. In other words, God is establishing a covenant of non-destruction with us and with all living creatures all over the world, north, south, east, and west, for all future generations. You can't get any more universal than that. And in the baptismal covenant, which we also revisit at the time of confirmation, we answer this question. Do you renounce the evil powers of this world which corrupt and destroy the creatures of God? And we answer, I renounce them. It sounds as if we are also being asked to hang up our bows and not to destroy life on earth, including our animal companions and the plants that bring us beauty, oxygen, and food. We are asked to treat them with the same respect that God does and to live companionably with them as Jesus did. So may I suggest that you find some time today to watch birds, or enjoy the breeze off the bay, or play with your cat or dog. The covenant God made with Noah was made with all flesh. It's far from a cute idea we can outgrow when we become adults. And what it says about God is that creative, reliable, responsive love is the clearest picture we have of our Creator, who also wears the human face of Jesus of Nazareth and our eternal Christ. The kingdom of God has come near, and the covenant is with all flesh.